Thank you so much for inviting me. Just a little intro. The Entertainment Technology Center at USC is part of the School of Cinematic Arts, but it's entirely funded by the 6 major studios plus consumer electronics companies to advise them on the future of entertainment and technology. We're always looking for the next new thing. Those are our sponsors. So the title of my talk is The Dark and Light of AR, but everybody's talking about the light, so I might not get that award, but I'm going to talk about the dark. And I really just want to focus and bring attention to some fundamental issues that are going to shape the future of mixed reality and bring them to into the forefront of people's minds before there is resistance to change, because there's an established business infrastructure built out. So this is actually the highlights from a much longer talk. It's a work in progress. I don't know everything. I can't be everywhere, so I would appreciate your feedback and ideas when this is over, and my email will be on the last slide as well. Just to bring us up to speed, and if I'm lucky, I will tell you one thing you don't already know in the course of this talk. When it comes to the current state of mixed reality, the focus so far has been on sight and sound and not on the other senses. The user experience, the user interface design are all very much in flux. We have interoperability issues. We have islands of technology in an ocean of creativity. And there are other issues that still need to be solved, health and safety, et cetera. But I really want to focus on a bigger picture, which puts augmented reality and virtual reality in the context of the Internet of Things, which is going to inform our VR and AR experiences. Artificial intelligence, which will shape our personalized information, the narrative structure of the experiences we have, our avatar's behavior, and overall our worldview. And just I'll touch on robotics, because a really good robot that you can identify with will reinforce whatever message the AI is communicating to you. So when it comes to the Internet of Things, mixed reality applications are using some of the Internet of Things data, but there are a few standards, and it's a highly fragmented landscape. Each industry has their own approach to the Internet of Things. When it comes to artificial intelligence, there are 3 levels of it. Machine learning, where the computer changes when it's exposed to new data. Artificial intelligence, which is like a subject matter expert. And artificial general intelligence, where you can ask the AI any sort of question in plain English, which is what Sophia here is capable of doing. One of the goals of Hanson Robotics, which created Sophia, is to create a robot that has emergent, surprising behavior. They're trying to train her to basically be more human, and she's the first robot with a Hollywood agent. So I want to cover 3 issues very quickly. Issues of security, the click license, and artificial intelligence design. And hopefully there's a story arc to this whole thing. Okay, my slides just went out. Hello and back. What happened? Thank you. All right, first one, security. As we're all aware, VR and AR headsets and equipment are constantly gathering data, and it's fundamental to their effective functioning. Very few of this technology has security built in because it adds cost and complexity. There's been resistance to securing these things, although there were a couple of talks over the last few days of initiatives to bring security into the headsets. And when it comes to the development of this, the focus is on how to make things work with little attention to the ramifications of how things could fail. What that means is that you can be hacked and your data can be hijacked. So for adults, that means that you could be fed distorted information, and a variant on reality could be pushed to you, as well as just interferes with your work. And for children, as we all know, you could feed them things that could cause emotional trauma. A possible solution, because as I raise these issues, I also want to raise possible solutions, is to look to the self-driving car infrastructure, because self-driving cars are mission critical. You can't have your car crashing on you. People won't ride in them. But when you get into your self-driving cars, the car system manufacturers will want to import your personal information. They want to give you your personal experience. And when you go to and from your destinations, you will want to continue whatever you're working on as you do that. So self-driving cars could be the way that we drive security through the entire infrastructure going forward. Health and medical applications may be a smaller second way, but we're looking to that as a possible driver of securing this and getting around the possibility of your data being hacked. Second issue, personal data, mixed reality, and the click license. As we all know, click licenses are non-negotiable. That's why they're clicks. But essentially, as you click away every move you make, every choice you make, we now have, with mixed reality, this windfall of new, very valuable data that is being gathered and used by other people for you and is being monetized by them. This matters at the moment because now we can have a discussion, if we want to, of rebalancing this trade-off between our personal data and the services that we get in exchange for it. So there are a number of movements, not getting a whole lot of publicity, but there are movements out there for getting control of your personal data. Some people are talking about using the blockchain infrastructure to allow you as a consumer to define what is private data, what you want to share in exchange for services, and what you want to have semi-private just among your friends. There are also movements to create marketplaces where you could exchange personal data or bundles of personal data for access to capabilities online. Again, it's not necessarily in the business interest of the current players to implement this, so you have not heard much of it, but there are discussions taking place, and I'm throwing references on all my slides, so if you want to look this up, it'll be in the video. The third issue I want to cover is artificial intelligence design, because as I said, AI is going to shape your personalized information, how your avatar behaves towards you, and your overall worldview. So to build AI, it takes two fundamental things. A training data set that's basically the gathering of the information that whoever's creating the AI thinks is the starting point for your worldview, and a definition of success. How do you want the AI to evolve? Back in the early days of the internet, Mish Kapoor said, "Architecture is politics." This is quotable enough so that Amazon sells it as a refrigerator magnet. What he meant by that is that the structure and design of the internet, not what is put onto it, determines what you can do and effectively how it can be used. More recently, Cathy O'Neill, who wrote a book called Weapons of Math Destruction, said, "Algorithms are opinions embedded in code." I'm not quite sure that's true for artificial intelligence. The algorithms, I think, are morally neutral, but the training sets and the definitions of success can have all sorts of biases built in them, and these are internalized biases, not generally intentional biases. A possible way of getting around those biases, and again, I'm going really fast here, is the whole idea of an AI audit. When you look at the starting data set, which is number one, and the definition of success, which is number two, if in the process of creating those, you do number three, which is have diversity in your reviewing panel, you can, at least in some ways, get around the biases that will be built into the system. The biases self-correct over time, but the starting point basically defines the direction of the supertanker, and to try and redirect the supertanker is difficult and time-consuming. So if you can start off without the biases built in, that's good, and long-term monitoring to make sure that they don't creep in. A recent cover story from the MIT Technology Review talks about the fact that AIs don't explain how they came to their conclusion. There's no clear way to communicate how the AI reaches a decision. And just to use two quotes from that article, "We can build these models, but we don't know how they work. And more importantly, how well can we get along with machines that are unpredictable and inscrutable?" This matters because research has shown, for a couple of decades actually, that the concept of self is very fragile. Not only can we rapidly adjust to having super long arms or short arms in AR and VR, but emotionally, how you are responded to in mixed reality can have a strong impact on your self-image and your self-worth. We don't even have to implement AI to see this in the real world. The Japanese Democratic Party released a VR game where they basically ask you, how well can you endure being questioned by the opposition candidate? Obviously, aside from the pure physical aspect of it, think of how this is reinforcing deep-seated views of the candidate for and against. And then when we throw in robots, if you've got a friendly, smiling face at you, you're more susceptible to the messages that they're putting forth. So if they're putting forth a biased message, you're more open to accepting it. Going back to Kathy O'Neill, a possible solution to this is she calls on modelers to take more responsibility for their algorithms. One of my coworkers, E. Berquist at the Entertainment Tech Center, who's a global leader in artificial intelligence, says, he doesn't quite agree with that. He says, a well-designed AI improves over time. I'm quoting him, engineers typically know enough math to get themselves into enormous trouble, but not enough to get out of it. And he says that this is probably what people are seeing when they say AIs can't explain the answers that they get. His suggestion is to make sure that AI development teams include the quants, include the mathematicians and the computer scientists, but also bring in psychologists, anthropologists, sociologists, et cetera, because together they will understand how the AI is evolving and they'll know how to extract the framework for the answers. You don't want to know how an AI reaches an individual decision, but you want to make sure it's heading in the right direction. Also, we need to become more savvy about how these models govern our lives, how they shape us. Dr. Bott, who used to be at Caltech and now has her own company, likes to use the metaphor of the evolution of food and eating habits. For millennia, we gathered the food we needed to eat, but we developed a craving for sweet, salty, and fatty foods. Back in the last century, the processed food industry recognized this, and they delivered sweet, salty, and fatty foods, which led to an epidemic of obesity. People who are aware that this is going on have developed self-protection strategies, such as eating more healthfully, mindful eating, et cetera. We need to be educated and understand the system so that we can do the same thing when it comes to AI. This may require policymakers to regulate or create laws around this, but people whose data is in these systems and who are the intended customers of these systems should have the tools and data to understand these systems. To my surprise, last week, Walter Mossberg, in his last post, agreed with this, and he said, if ambient technology is to become as integrated into our lives as we expect it will, we need to subject it to the digital equivalent of enforceable building codes and auto safety standards. So he even in that article called for legislators to wake up and start being intimidated. So we talked about security, click licenses, artificial intelligence design. I have lost my slide again. It's a good slide. Thank you. These are not problems. They're just known elements of an emerging system that should be part of a planning discussion. Alan Kay famously said, technology is anything that wasn't around when you were born. Everything else is just part of the landscape. Think about it. We're defining the starting point, the training set for future generations. I kind of wish I had a call to action at this moment, but I really just want to get people thinking about this and talk about these issues and bring them into your planning now before there is no resistance to new ideas and a resistance to change with existing infrastructure. And on that, I thank you.